get a good angle if you want to look up front. Johnny is going to talk about speed cutting. And he tells me that if he tried to cut this 24 minutes brilliant, he has to cut and not talk. So he wants to tell you things about speed cutting, so we're not going to hold it in 24 minutes. But I think you're going to find this pretty entertaining.
26 minutes since I got to talk. I talk too much. 28. What I'd like to do is just ask, everybody is always interested in improving their speed, because in our hobby, in our profession, time is money. Now there's a lot of pros and cons to speed cutting. The reason I started cutting fast is because I'm a very impatient individual. If it takes me more than an hour to do something, I typically walk away. I've started more stones than I've finished, without a doubt, and a lot of them are halfway done. But it became a challenge when I went out to Tucson to cut the 24-minute or to cut a stone under 30 minutes. And true to form, the first time I tried it, it took about 45. And because I was sitting there and I was talking and trying to explain everything that I was doing, and then we determined the next time I wouldn't talk and I'd have somebody narrate for me to let them know what I was doing. And we did it. In 24 minutes, it was about a 7mm that came off. The only mishap that happened is during removing it from the dock, the heat got to it and it cracked. But again, the stone was roughed to finish, including transfer time. Now, a lot of people say, yeah, right. Well, you can do it, and there's little tricks to it to find out how to. How many people here want to improve their time in cutting? Everybody, pretty much. And at any point in time, if you have any particular questions, please feel free to raise your hand. I'd like to entertain any of them. No, I'm not going to sit down and finish the stone within 24 minutes. What I will do is show you how to use your machine to be able to cut a pavilion essentially within about 10 to 15 minutes. Now, how do you do that? First off, you have to have new laps. They have to be sharp. Anytime I did a speed cutting demonstration, I had a brand new import 260 grit lap. Why an import? Because they're more aggressive than a standard lap. Now from there I would move on to a Dynadisc 600 because it actually cut like a 1200. It's nice pre-polished, then straight to cerium oxide. Now a lot of us know that we're taught that you need to cut, and then do another cut, then a pre-polish, and then polish them in to completely neat. Well, if you do that, that's fine. That also requires time. Now, I cut at 100% speed, or a little bit over 2,000 RPMs constantly. Believe it or not, I sometimes polish with cerium oxide at 100%. I know Marsh would frown upon that, but I do. What's the downside of that? Well, the first thing is you're going to wear your laps out faster. Also, to try to decrease your time, one way to do that is to increase the pressure. But when you do that, you're going to wear your laps out faster. So there's a fine line that you have to draw between trying to save money and actually wind up spending money by buying more and additional equipment. Now, how did you get your transfer done so fast? It's an interesting question. And my next challenge is I feel that I can cut a complete calibrated set of earrings in less than an hour. So that'll be my next time that I do that. Well, how do you do that? Well, good. Transferring, a lot of people, we talk about epoxy, we talk about wax, we talk about glues, we talk about heating, acetone, putting them in the oven with your cornbread or JB Weld for Tyler. All that takes time. Now, when I transferred the stone, I was using cyanoacrylate, super glue, because it cures very fast. What I did is when I set it and I cut the pavilion, I went ahead and polished the girdle and I polished the pavilion, brought it over to the cone top, set it up in the transfer fixture, stood up because the glue was instantly set, walked over to a trim saw, cut the side off that had the flat top on it. Now, who feels that you can use a torch and all to set up and remove a wax faster than I can use a trim saw to saw that off? It's not likely. Now, how do you incorporate that into cutting set stones? How can I decrease my time in cutting pairs? What you need is, if you have a long enough crystal, this one probably not because of the diameter, if you have a long enough crystal, you go ahead and cut the girdle. And essentially what you've done is you've cut the girdle for both stones. Now once you transfer, instead of taking it off of this dot, you'll take it to your trim saw. You'll leave enough room for your crown, you'll cut it off, and then all you have to do is sit down and cut this pavilion, and you have a perfectly calibrated stone. So that's the number one way that you can decrease your time as far as cutting pairs. Now the limitation to that is you have to have a large enough crystal to do it, or make sure you use the right doms too, because if you cut them, they mess up as well. But that's a few of the tricks that you can do to speed up your cutting. The two main ingredients that I use is speed and pressure. But the negative parts of that is you're going to wear your laps. That brings us to your equipment. You know, and everyone fiddles with the machines and so forth and so on, and then after transfer you have to get it just right and perfect. If you're going to try to sell your stones, you don't need to try for perfection. A competition stone, you would never make any profit. You'd wind up spending or selling it for a penny, you know, an hour, if you really look at it. So what you have to do is make sure that you're mindful of that. And the biggest thing then is to feel comfortable with your equipment. For the past 4.5 years, my experience has been on the Gym Master 2. So I'm very comfortable and I'm very trustworthy of the machine. And that's going to be the hardest part, is when you get comfortable with your equipment. And you can know that this meter is going to hit it right on the dot. Or if you're using another machine and you're using a digital, you know exactly when that number changes, that's when you need to stop and look and move on. Or when you're using a dial indicator, you know exactly when to look real quick. There are a few other things that make me a little faster. I've got good eyesight. You know, a lot of people tell me, how do you know what number you got? Or how do you know what number you've hit? Well, it's because, again, you have to be comfortable with your machine and you have to be comfortable in using it. Now this stone has already been preformed because I'm going to be using it for my OMF demonstration a little bit later. I'm going to use this or cut it in the Simple 8 design or the Easy 8. And what I'm going to do is go ahead, recut all of these facets, and then come in and cut those additional row of facets. And you'll be able to see just how quickly that you can move through and do that. Now remember, regardless of the machine, each one has their own comfort level, and you have to spend time to make sure that you are there. This particular machine, I know that once this meter hits 0, I'm close enough that I can move on. So we'll go ahead and do that demonstration as well. Also, I have to tell you that this is a lifesaver. If you cut at 100% with the water flow that you're supposed to, you make a mess. You also want to make sure that you have the proper amount of water flow, because if you don't, you're going to wear those laps out even faster. Luckily, Mr. Miller has volunteered his laps for me to destroy, to use. So that's good. This particular one is a 600 centered, and what I'm going to do is establish this first facet. Just like most of the machines, this has a depth of cut meter. So once I get that point, and I'm going to cut that to the 0. Now I can look at this, and I don't know if you can't zoom in on that, can you? That would be the critical. This one. Which one? Zoom in.
There you go.
All right. Can you see the stone itself?
It's kind of grainy.
Yeah. You can see this facet's a little bit lower than the other tier facets. Okay, that's without a doubt. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead, index, cut to the 0, index, cut to the 0, index, cut to the 0, index. And again, am I going to cut a competition quality stone? No. Was the 24-minute stone a competition quality stone? Absolutely not. Is it better than what you find in every jewelry store? I would say yes, unless some of y'all have your material in the store. So, but it's, again, you have to be comfortable with the machine. And if you look,